The year was 2231, and Earth was no longer home. For more than 100 years, no human had set foot on its soil. It hung in the darkness of space, blue and green under its clouds, looking beautiful from a distance, yet every starship captain knew the warning, "Do not enter the dead zone." It wasn't just a law from the United Planetary Council. It was fear. They called it the place no one returns from. Merchant ships avoided its orbit. Patrol fleets never crossed the invisible border. The few who tried never sent a single message back. For most, Earth was just a ghost in the night sky, a memory from old history lessons. But for Commander Jack Rains, it was something else entirely. Jack sat in the dim cockpit of his small freighter, the Vulture, staring at the old star maps. He had been many things in his life: soldier, smuggler, troublemaker, but he had never been a man who ignored a mystery. And tonight, he had one sitting in front of him. The ship's comm system had picked up a faint, broken transmission. First, he thought it was static, but then it came against low, almost pleading. A human voice, thin and crackling through layers of interference, saying just one word: help. The signal was old. Its data signature matched nothing from the colonies. Even stranger, it was coming from Earth's surface. The crew wasn't happy about it. Zara, the ship's engineer, leaned against the wall with her arms crossed. "Jack, I know that look. It's the same look you had before you took us into that pirate minefield in Vega Sector. This is worse." She pointed at the glowing dot. "On the screen? That's the dead zone. You know what happens to ships that go there?" Jack gave a thin smile. "Yeah, they vanish. But maybe they vanish because they found something worth hiding." In the back of the cockpit, Kellen, the youngest crew member, shook his head. "Or maybe they vanish because something eats them whole." His voice cracked on the last word and no one laughed. Still, Jack set the course. The Vulture's engines rumbled, and the ship turned toward the forbidden blue world. Outside the windows, the stars shifted, and Earth grew larger with every passing minute. At first, it looked like the pictures from ancient history: oceans, green continents, white clouds. But the closer they got, the stranger it became. Scanners went blind. Navigation systems began spinning random numbers. The comms filled with a low hum, almost like a heartbeat, by the time they reached the edge of Earth's gravity well. Every alarm in the cockpit was flashing red. Zara swore under her breath, slamming her hands over the controls. "Something's pulling us in. It's not gravity. It's like a magnetic lock." Jack's hands tightened on the controls, but it was useless. The ship was no longer under his command. Outside, the curve of Earth filled the entire view, glowing in the sunlight, and for the first time in 100 years, human eyes looked directly at the planet without a telescope. The Vulture broke through the upper atmosphere, and that was when they saw its lights. Not random city lights, but massive patterns of perfect geometric shapes, glowing bright against the darkness of the continents. Circles, squares, long straight lines that stretched for hundreds of miles, all shining in pale blue. No cities from the old world looked like this. Kellen leaned forward, his eyes wide. That's not human architecture." Jack didn't answer. His mind was racing, calculating risks, thinking of the message that brought them here. The voice had been human. The signal had been human. But nothing down there looked like home. They descended toward one of the glowing patterns. The air was clear, the sky strangely calm. No storms, no wind, no clouds nearby. It was too perfect, like a painting. Zara glanced at the external sensors. "I'm not reading any animal life. No birds, no insects, nothing." The Vulture touched down on what should have been a grassy plain, but the ground was hard, smooth, and black like stone. Up close, the glowing lines were embedded in the surface, pulsing faintly like veins under skin. The air smelled clean, almost artificial. Jack stepped out first, his boots ringing against the ground. His voice echoed strangely as if the open space around them was hollow. Somewhere far away, there was movement. Not a living thing, something mechanical, gliding silently just above the surface, too far to see clearly. It vanished behind a ridge, leaving only the faint glow of the lines. Jack tapped his wristcom, trying to trace the signal. It was stronger now, leading them toward a cluster of towering shapes on the horizon. From a distance, they looked like buildings, but as they drew closer, they realized they weren't made of concrete or steel. They were smooth, featureless, and seamless, as if grown from a single piece of black glass. The voice came again, louder this time. Help. It echoed through their headsets, too clear for static, too close to be from deep underground. They entered the first tower. Inside, there was no dust, no decay, just long corridors, lit by the same pale blue veins in the walls. The air was still, heavy, as if the building had been sealed for centuries. Jack led the way, every step sending a faint vibration through the floor. Then they found the source. A small, ancient-looking transmitter sat in the middle of a perfectly round room. Its design was old Earth old, the kind of tech that hadn't been built in 200 years. Jack stepped forward, scanning it. The signal was coming from here, but there was no one in sight, no living thing at all. The voice came again, but this time it wasn't just one word. It was a sentence, broken and weak. Help, they are watching. A cold shiver ran down Jack's spine. He looked at Zara and Kellen, both pale in the glow of the blue light. Who's watching? Zara whispered, before Jack could answer. Something shifted in the shadows of the doorway. A tall figure stood there, human-shaped but wrong. Its arms were too long, its head too smooth. Its eyes glowing with the same pale blue light as the lines on the ground. The figure tilted its head slowly, watching them in silence. Jack didn't move. He didn't breathe. And then, without a sound, the figure was gone. The pale blue glow from the walls seemed to pulse like a slow heartbeat, wrapping the crew in an unnatural stillness. The strange figure that had stood in the doorway was gone, but the air felt heavier, as if it had left a piece of itself behind. Jack's hand rested on the grip of his sidearm, but he didn't draw it. Bullets felt useless against something like that. Kellen's voice trembled in the cum. Jack, what was that? Jack didn't answer. Instead, he crouched near the old transmitter, scanning it with his wrist console. The results made no sense. There was no power source, no antenna, no reason the thing should even be working. And yet it was broadcasting loud and clear. The help signal wasn't bouncing into space, it was being pulled into the building itself, vanishing into some hidden network below their feet. Zara shifted uneasily, glancing at the door. I don't like this. We need to get back to the ship. And a sudden vibration shook the floor, cutting her off. The lights in the walls flickered. And from somewhere deep in the structure came the sound of heavy movement, lay slow and deliberate, like something huge was turning in the dark. Jack stood. We're not running, not yet, that voice said. They're watching. I want to know who they are. Reluctantly, the crew followed him out into the pale daylight. The black glass towers loomed around them like silent giants, their smooth surfaces reflecting distorted shapes of the crew as they passed. The horizon was lined with more structures, all connected by glowing pathways that ran straight and perfect as far as the eye could see. It took them over an hour of walking before. The ground beneath their boots began to change. The smooth black surface cracked and gave way to something different. Pavement, real pavement. And beyond it, standing in eerie silence, was what should have been impossible. A city, not the ruins of a city. It's not crumbling walls or broken streets. This was a living, breathing city without the people. Skyscrapers stretched high into the pale sky, their glass windows unbroken. Storefronts displayed goods, as if waiting for customers. Cars were parked neatly at the sides of the roads, gleaming as if freshly washed. And yet, not a single person moved. Kellen stepped into the street, his footsteps echoing far too loudly. This is New York. I've seen old vids. But he swallowed. It's new. Nara ran her fingers across a nearby wall. No dust. No decay. She looked at Jack. It's like someone built a perfect copy of the old city. They moved cautiously through the streets, passing silent cafes with tables set. Newspapers neatly stacked by doorways, and glowing street lamps even in daylight. Every detail was perfect, yet there was a wrongness to it all. No wind. No smell of food or fuel. No hum of distant machinery. The deeper they went, the stronger the signal became. Jack followed it down an alley to a metal door half hidden behind a trash bin that looked brand new. The door was unlocked. Behind it, a set of stairs led downward into darkness. The air grew colder as they descended, the walls lined with more of the glowing blue veins. The stairs opened into a massive underground hall, rows upon rows of glass pods stretching into the shadows. Each one contained a human being, perfectly still, eyes closed, faces peaceful. Zara's hand covered her mouth. Oh my God! They moved between the rows, their footsteps muffled on the smooth floor. The people inside the pods weren't just alive, they looked identical. Same hair, same height, same features. Jack stopped in front of one pod and felt his chest tighten. It was him. The face behind the glass was his own same jawline. It's the same scar above the eyebrow, same faint crease between the eyes. His double lay in perfect stillness, breathing softly as if in a dream. Kellen whispered, "Jack, what is this place?" Jack didn't answer. He leaned closer to the pod, searching for any sign of how or why it existed. A soft hiss made them all turn. One of the pods down the row was opening.
Ow.
Steam curled into the cold air as the glass door lifted with a mechanical sigh. The man who stepped out was naked, his skin pale from the pod's glow. He blinked slowly, then turned his head toward them. And when he spoke, his voice was calm, steady, and all too familiar. "I'm Rains. Model 7. Jack froze. "What did you just say?" The man smiled faintly. "You're the original, or at least the first one they let walk free. The Watchers won't like that." Zara stepped forward. "Who are the Watchers?" Rain 7 tilted his head. "Machines. Guardians. Prison wardens. Call them what you like. They keep Earth pure. They keep us here. They erase mistakes." A distant sound echoed through the tunnels, metallic and human, drawing closer, and Seven's calm expression vanished. "They're coming. You need to leave now." Jack shook his head. "Not until you tell me what's going on." The clone's eyes locked on Jack's with unsettling intensity. "The truth? You already died here, Commander. Over 100 years ago." Before Jack could speak, the shadows at the far end of the hall shifted. 3 tall figures emerged, gliding silently across the floor. Their bodies were sleek and black, their heads featureless except for the same glowing blue eyes. The Watchers. The lead one tilted its head just as the figure in the tower had done. Then, without a word, they began to move fast. Jack shouted, "Move!" and the crew sprinted back toward the stairs, Rain 7 running beside them with surprising speed. Behind them, the Watchers followed without sound, their movements too smooth, too perfect. They burst into the daylight. The silent city still as before, but now the glow in the streets pulsed faster, as if reacting to the chase. Jack didn't know if the Watchers could leave the tunnels, but he didn't want to find out. They ran toward the edge of the city. Every shadow feeling alive, every reflection in the glass towering above them just slightly, wrong in somewhere. Far behind, from deep within the earth, the help signal began again. But this time, it wasn't a plea. It was a warning. The warning signal echoed in their ears long after they left the silent city behind. It repeated every 30 seconds, each time colder, sharper, as if some machine voice was forcing human words. The crew moved quickly across the glowing ground, the pale blue lines stretching under their boots like veins of some sleeping giant. The towers of black glass grew smaller in the distance. But Jack's eyes kept scanning the horizon, expecting to see the Watchers gliding toward them again. Rain 7 walked beside him with an ease that didn't match the urgency of the moment. His movements were steady, his breathing calm, and his gaze always forward, as though he already knew where they were going. Jack couldn't stop glancing at him. The clone's face was his own, down to the faint scar above the brow and the tired look in the eyes. But there was something colder in this version, something that felt like it had been strained out of emotion. "You still haven't told me what you are," Jack said finally. Rain 7 gave a faint smile. "I told you, I'm you. The 7th. iteration to be exact. They've made others, but I've lasted the longest. Zara frowned. Others? You mean there are more copies of Jack walking around here? The clone shook his head. Not walking around, sleeping, waiting for their turn. The Watchers keep spares. When one fails, another wakes. Kellen's voice cracked. Fails. You mean dies? Yes. Rain 7 said it with no hesitation, no trace of emotion. They walked in silence for a few minutes. The only sound, the faint hum of the glowing lines beneath them. Jack's thoughts churned. If Rain 7 was telling the truth, then his own existence, his memories, his life might not be unique. He could be one of many, each sent out to explore, each failing in some way, each replaced without the rest of humanity ever knowing. Finally, Jack asked the question that had been eating at him since the underground hall. Why? Why copy me? Clone's eyes stayed fixed ahead. Because you're persistent. You keep coming back. The Watchers don't like that. They prefer humans who obey, who stay in their assigned roles. You never have. Zara glanced at Jack. So they keep making you, until you stop, till they can make one that follows orders, Rain 7 corrected. A faint sound drifted toward them on the windless-era low hum that wasn't from their ship. Rain 7 stopped, his head tilting slightly. They've deployed the Seekers. From the far horizon, 3 small dark shapes rose into the air. They were not drones, smooth and round, each with a single glowing eye. They moved in silence, scanning the ground below as they approached. Rain 7 turned to Jack. You want answers? Follow me. But we can't be seen from above. Without another word, he led them toward a jagged break in the glowing ground. It was a narrow fissure, just wide enough to squeeze through, and it dropped into darkness. One by one, they climbed down, the blue glow fading until the only light came from their wrist lamps. The air underground was damp and heavy, carrying a faint metallic smell. The walls were rough, not the smooth black glass of the towers. It felt older here, like they were stepping into a place untouched by whatever had remade the surface. After a long descent, the fissure widened into a vast cavern, and there in the center stood a massive metal structure half buried, covered in dust and clearly far older than anything they had seen above. Strange markings ran along its surface, not human, not anything Jack recognized. What is this? Zara asked. Rain 7 stepped forward, his voice quieter now. This is where it began. The Watchers didn't build Earth's new face from nothing. They started here. This is the seed. Jack circled the structure, running his hand across the cold metal. Alien. It wasn't a question. Yes, they came here before the Great Abandonment, before your people left. They decided humans couldn't be trusted with their own world. Kellen's voice was small. So they took it. They remade it. The clone corrected. Perfect, clean, controlled. No hunger, no war, no chaos, but no freedom either. They don't just guard the planet, they curate it. Jack turned sharply. Then why are there still people here? In the pods. Rain 7's gaze was steady. Insurance. They keep humans preserved, ready to restart the species when the time is right. But not everyone. It's only the ones they choose. Only the versions they approve. Zara's voice dropped. And the ones they don't approve. And 7's faint smile returned, though it held no warmth. They erased them, down to the last cell. A sudden, high-pitched tone filled the cavern. The drones. Seekers had found the fissure above. The sound grew louder, echoing off the stone. Rain 7's calm broke for the first time. We have to move now. They ran deeper into the cavern, the blue glow from the surface fading behind them. The ground sloped downward, and soon they found themselves in a narrow tunnel lit only by their lamps. Jack could feel the vibration of the drones closing in, could hear the faint whir of their rotors. The tunnel ended in a massive steel door, its surface marked with more of the alien symbols. Rain 7 placed his hand against it, and the markings flared to life, glowing faintly. The door slid open with a deep groan, revealing a small room filled with old Earth technology, radios, maps, consoles. South, this Rain 7 said, is a safe zone. The Watchers can't scan here. It's where the first rebels hid. Jack stepped inside, scanning the room. Rebels? Yes, the humans who stayed behind. They tried to fight the Watchers. They failed. But they left. Clues, hoping one day someone would come back to finish what they started. The faint hum of the Seekers vanished, replaced by silence. But it didn't feel like safety, it felt like a pause before the next danger. Jack looked at Rain 7. Why help us? If you work for them, I don't work for them, the clone said sharply. I've been playing their game for years, waiting for someone like you to come back. Because the only way to beat them is from inside. Jack's eyes narrowed. And what exactly do you want me to do? Rain 7 stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Destroy the seed. If it falls, the whole system collapses. Earth will be free again. Before Jack could reply, the room's old radio crackled. To life? A voice human but metallic spoke through the static. Rain's unit detected. Termination authorized.
Ow.
The lights flickered. Somewhere in the tunnels behind them, heavy footsteps began to move closer. The shuttle drifted above the Earth's dead zone, its black hole blending into the darkness of space. Below, the planet glowed faintly, clouds moving in strange, unnatural patterns. To any outsider, it looked like a quiet, abandoned world. But to Captain Raylan and his crew, it felt like a predator pretending to sleep. Inside the cockpit, silence pressed against the crew's ears. The comms were dead. Navigation kept flickering, and the faint hum of the engines was the only sound. Raylan leaned forward, staring at the surface. There, he said, pointing at a faint glimmer on the night side of the planet. It was small, like a single spark in a sea of darkness. But it pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Zara, the tech specialist, checked the scanners. That's not natural. It's a transmission. But it's old. Like really old. Her voice carried a strange edge, as if she was speaking to herself more than the others. Tehran. The weapons officer shifted in his seat. If it's broadcasting, someone or something is still alive down there. No one is alive down there, Raylan said firmly. At least no one human. The shuttle descended through the upper atmosphere, the air glowing faint red. Against the hull, below them, they could see the ruins of massive cities, skyscrapers broken like bones. Streets overgrown with alien-looking vegetation, rivers turned black. There were no lights, no fires, no signs of movement. But then, as they passed over what was once New York, something changed. The buildings moved, not in the way a building should move in the wind, but in sudden, sharp jerks, like muscles flexing, concrete bent, glass rippled, whole streets twisted as if the city itself was breathing. The crew froze, staring down through the viewport. That's not possible, Zara whispered. It's alive, Tehran muttered. The city is alive. Suddenly, the signal they were tracking flared in strength. The pulsing light below began to quicken, almost frantic now, like it knew they were here. The shuttle's system screamed warnings, radiation spikes, electromagnetic. Surges, hull stress. We're leaving, Raylan ordered, pulling the controls back. But the shuttle didn't respond. The engines roared, then cut out. The ship spun slowly in the sky, caught in an invisible grip. Zara's console lit up with 100 error messages. It's controlling us. It's pulling us in. Outside, black tendrils rose from the ground, not vines, but long, liquid-like shadows stretching toward the shuttle. They moved too fast for their size, curling through the air like snakes. One of them lashed against the hull, and the metal groaned. The crew heard it not just through the ship, but in their minds, a low, hungry hum. Brace for impact, Raylan shouted. The shuttle was dragged downward, spinning as the shadows tightened around it. Below, the city's twisted streets opened like a mouth. The last thing they saw before the clouds swallowed them was the faint glimmer again, now blinking fast. It's like a desperate warning. It wasn't calling for help. It was telling them to run. The shuttle slammed into the ruins, tearing through crumbling towers before grinding to a stop in the middle of a street that wasn't a street anymore. The ground beneath them pulsed, soft and warm, as if they had landed on the skin of something alive. Sparks danced across the cockpit. Raylan's ears rang. Everyone's status, he barked. I'm here, Zara gasped, pulling herself from the wreckage of her console. Tehran? I'm fine, Tehran growled, already gripping his rifle, but we need to move now. The air outside was thick and heavy, tasting faintly metallic. The sky above was a swirling bruise of dark clouds, and lightning flashed in. Shapes that didn't look natural. Far in the distance, skyscrapers twisted slowly, as though turning to watch them. They moved quickly through the wreckage, weapons raised. Every step made the ground ripple beneath their boots. Somewhere deep below, they could hear a slow, steady thump, like a colossal heartbeat. The signal was stronger now, deafening in Zara's headset. She stopped suddenly, pointing at a collapsed subway entrance ahead. It's coming from down there, Raylan hesitated, or it's luring us there. Before they could decide, the ground behind them tore open. Black tendrils burst upward, writhing and snapping through the air. One of them whipped past, smashing into a nearby building and sending it toppling. Move, Raylan shouted. They dove into the subway just as the tendrils slammed down where they had been standing. Inside it was darker than night, the air damp and cold. Strange, glowing veins ran along the walls, pulsing with that same heartbeat rhythm as they went deeper. The walls became less like concrete and more like bone smooth, curved and organic. The tunnels twisted unnaturally, leading them into a vast underground chamber. At the center was the source of the signal. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't even alien technology in the way they knew it. It was a brain, massive, beating, alive, suspended in a pool of black fluid. Its surface shone wet and pink under the glow of the veins. Each pulse sent vibrations through the floor, and a faint whisper into their minds, "Welcome?" Raylan's stomach dropped. It's been calling us. Not just you, the whisper continued, growing louder. All of them. Every ship. Every crew. Every curious mind that comes close. Images flashed in their heads, ships falling from orbit, crews screaming as tendrils consumed them, cities being reshaped, humans being broken down into something. Else Zara clutched her head. It's not a dead zone, she whispered. It's a trap. The whole planet is a living organism. The brain pulsed faster, and the black fluid began to rise. Shapes moved inside human shapes, but wrong. Their eyes glowed faintly. Their skin was slick with the same black liquid. They stepped out of the pool, silent and slow. Those are Tehran started. They were human. Raylan finished grimly. The creatures advanced. Behind them, the tunnel walls shifted, closing slowly. There would be no escape. The brain's voice filled their minds completely now. You came looking for the truth. Now you are part of it. The chamber shook violently. The black liquid surged. Forward, Zara screamed. And then darkness. The last transmission from Raylan's crew was a burst of static. In a single, repeating message, Earth is not abandoned. Earth is awake. The heavy footsteps echoed through the tunnel like the beat of a war drum, slow but unstoppable. Dust shook from the ceiling with each step. Somewhere far down the dark corridor, a pale blue glow began to pulse in time with the sound. Jack didn't need Rain 7 to tell him it was the Watchers. Zara's voice was tight. We can't fight them. You saw what they did in the city. Rain 7 didn't move from where he stood near the old radio. You can't fight them in the open. You can outthink them. His eyes locked on Jack. This safe zone won't last long. Once they get close enough, they'll burn through every wall to reach us. We have one option strike before they close the trap. Jack crossed the room in 2 steps. He said, we need to destroy the seed. Where is it? Clone hesitated. The main seed core is buried under what used to be Washington. DC, the Watchers built their primary archive, their every human DNA record, every memory file, every approved life. If it's destroyed, they lose control. Kellen's voice cracked. And how do you destroy something that survived over 100 years? A faint smile touched Rain 7's lips. with what they fear most, chaos. Signal that scrambles their network, overloads their control systems. The rebels built one, but it's stored inside the core itself. Zara shook her head. So, to destroy it, we have to walk right into their most secure facility. Yes, the clone said simply. The footsteps were closer now. The glow in. The corridor was brighter, reflecting off the steel walls. Jack made his decision. Then we go. Now, they left the safe zone, slipping into a narrow maintenance shaft that ran alongside the main tunnel. It was cramped and dark, the air thick with the smell of metal and dust. Every few minutes, the sound of the Watchers' movement rumbled through the walls, reminding them of the danger at their heels. After an hour of winding through the underground network, they emerged into what looked like an abandoned subway station. Tracks ran into the darkness on both sides, the walls covered in faded advertisements from centuries ago. Oh, but the floor was too clean, no debris, no dirt, no decay. The Watchers had been here. Rain 7 led them to a train car that looked as if it had been frozen in time. This line runs straight to the core district. It's faster than walking, but once we move, they'll know exactly where we're going. Jack climbed aboard without hesitation. Then we moved fast. The train started with a low hum, gliding silently along the tracks. Outside the windows, the tunnels rushed past, lit only by the faint glow of the blue veins that ran through the walls. The silence was unnerving, no creaks of metal, no rattling wheels, just the smooth, perfect movement of a machine built to last forever. Halfway to their destination, the lights in the car flickered. A cold voice filled the air, not from the speakers, but directly into their minds. Unauthorized human units detected. Cease movement. Compliance will be rewarded. Zara's hands clenched. I hate it when they do that. Rain 7 didn't react. It's not for us. It's for them. Ahead, the tunnel widened into a vast underground chamber, and standing there waiting for them was the largest Watcher they had seen yet. Its body was sleek and tall, the pale blue glow running through its armor like rivers of light. Its face soar. What passed for one was smooth and blank. But Jack could feel its gaze like a weight pressing on his chest. The voice returned. Earth is pure. Earth will remain pure. The law is absolute. Jack stepped forward in the train car, glaring at the towering figure. And what's that law, exactly? The Watcher's head tilted slightly. Humanity is permitted under supervision. Deviations will be removed. You are a deviation. The train doors slid open. Before anyone could move, beams of pale light shot out from the Watcher's hands, wrapping around the car like chains. The walls groaned as the beams tightened. Move, Jack shouted. They dove out of the opposite side, hitting the ground. Hard as the beams crushed the train in on itself. Rain 7 was already running toward a side tunnel. This way, that thing can't follow us in here. The tunnel was narrower than the others, lined with cables and strange alien devices. Jack realized they were inside part of the Watcher's own infrastructure, the nervous system of their control network. Every wall pulsed faintly with blue light, and the air was warm, almost alive. They ran for what felt like miles before the tunnel opened into a massive chamber. In the center stood a towering cylinder of black glass, surrounded by walkways and humming machinery. The glow here was brighter, sharper, as if the very air vibrated with energy. Rain 7 stopped. This is a relay hub, not the core, but close enough to send a false signal. We can buy time. Jack moved to the nearest console, but the controls were in the alien script. Zara joined him, her eyes scanning the symbols. I think I can force a broadcast. Give me a minute. The far wall shuddered as metal claws tore through it. Smaller, Watchers, sleek, fast, and silent poured into the chamber, their eyes burning bright. Jack drew his weapon. Zara, do it. She worked fast, her fingers flying over the console. A sudden surge of light flooded the chamber, and every watcher froze mid-step. The glow in their eyes flickered. Zara grinned. Got it? The victory lasted only seconds. The lead watcher's voice boomed in their heads again. Interference detected. System integrity at risk. Initiating purge protocol. All around them, the walls began to change, splitting open, revealing coils of glowing metal that reached out like living things. The entire hub was turning into a weapon. Rain 7's voice cut through the chaos. We have to leave. Now. Jack fired into the coils, buying them a path to the exit. They ran through the twisting corridors, the glow chasing them like a predator. By the time they emerged into the cold night air above, the relay hub behind them was collapsing in on itself, vanishing into the ground as if it had never been there. Jack stood, breathing hard, staring toward the faint glow on the horizon. That was the core, the heart of the Watcher's Law. And if they didn't reach it soon, the next purge wouldn't just erase them, it would erase everything.